I was alive once without or apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment which was to bring life, I found to bring death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it killed me. Romans 7, 9-11.
Our infants possess the same sin nature we all inherited from Adam, but the implication could be drawn from this passage that those who have never actually committed a willful sin themselves, the kind of hand-in-the-cookie-jar experience that they knew was wrong when they did it, will be accounted as alive at the rapture. On the other hand, not having willfully sinned is not at all the same thing as having a relationship with Yahweh. I'm going to go out on a theological limb here, but it appears to be solid enough. Children who are not mature enough to make their own spiritual choices may be raptured or left behind on the basis of their parents' faith. Give that a speculation factor of 4. They may be saved through the faith of either their mother or father, or left behind to face the last days with their unbelieving parents. Remember, there were children in Sodom who suffered the same fate as their evil parents, though Lot's less than perfect daughters were rescued with him. Paul writes,
For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but they are set apart. 1 Corinthians 7:14.
This, of course, puts a huge responsibility on the shoulders of parents. It's there anyway. For their kids' eternal fate is linked to their parents in the rapture. This is not quite as unfair as it may sound for those kids left behind, however. A few years will probably pass between the rapture and the tribulation, and the tribulation itself will last 7 years. So a 4-year-old child of non-Christian parents at the time of the rapture could easily be, and I'm guessing here, 13 or 14 years old by the time Yahshua returns in his glory. Plenty of time to figure it out and make his own choice. In other words, such a child has the same opportunity to make a right or wrong decision as anyone else on earth, before or after the rapture. I have a feeling that kids will grow up fast during this time. The trick will be staying alive long enough to make the right choices. Fourth, though the timeline in Lot's escape from Sodom was abbreviated, taking only a few hours, the coming of judgment, once the rapture is accomplished, is just as certain. Yahshua warned us,
In the days of Lot they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from the heaven, and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day he who is on the housetop, and his goods are in his house, let him not come down to take them away. And likewise the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. Luke 17:28-33.
The Sodomites thought that it was just another day, but Lot's departure signaled the coming of a rain of fire upon them. In the same way, the rapture will begin a chain of events that will culminate in the total annihilation of wickedness in this world. Yahshua is not saying that the rapture will happen on the same day that the Son of Man is revealed. He has given us enough chronological details elsewhere for us to know otherwise. He is merely saying that when he is revealed, it will be too late to avoid certain destruction. It's going to get messy. You don't want to be here when it happens. And what about Lot's wife? She never understood that the world has nothing that could help her in the end. She appeared to be following Lot to a place of safety, but in her heart she longed for the good life of the city. Turning around, she made her choice not to trust Yahweh. She chose to put her faith in the world instead. But as strange as it sounds, whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life following Yahweh will preserve it. I've given Lot a hard time for his apparent weaknesses, but in truth we've all lived in Sodom at one time or another. We do have to earn a living. We do have to feed our families. We don't have to buy into the system quite to the extent that Lot did, but perhaps it was pressure from his social climbing wife that got him so deep into Sodomite society. Peter sheds some light on Lot's true feelings.
Yahweh turned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example to those who afterward would live ungodly, and delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds. 2 Peter 2:6-8.
We who must live in Sodom, or San Francisco, need to be honest with ourselves. Are we oppressed and tormented by what we see around us? Or would we have to be dragged kicking and screaming to meet Yahshua in the air? Yahshua once told a parable that plainly outlined the conditions before, during, and after the rapture. The setting of the story is a wedding. The custom in those days was for the bridegroom to arrive at an undisclosed hour at his bride's home, where she would be waiting expectantly with her bridesmaids. They were smarter back then than we are now. The groom's arrival was supposed to be a surprise. That way, there was no way he could show up late. Then the couple, carrying palm and myrtle branches, would be led in festive procession to the bridegroom's house. The bridesmaids, of which 10 was the usual number, carried olive oil lamps atop staves as the little parade made its way through the streets. Grain or money was thrown about. Musicians played, and those who met the procession along the way considered it a joyful religious duty to join in the festivities, which typically lasted for a whole week. That's the background. Now here is the parable.
Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, lest there should not be enough for us and you. But go rather to those who sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went out to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding. And the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came also, saying, Master, Master, open the door to us. But he answered and said, Assuredly, I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. Matthew 25:1-13.
The bridegroom, in case you haven't figured this out, is Yahshua. For the sake of the parable, the virgins, the bridesmaids, are the church. In actuality, the church is the bride of Christ, but you can't make every metaphor work on every level. The virgins are divided into 2 groups, those who are prepared, who have the oil of the set-apart Spirit, and those who are not so prepared. If you'll recall, the churches listed in Revelation 2 and 3 included 2 that were especially characteristic of the last days, Philadelphia and Laodicea. The first represents the wise virgins, the second the foolish ones. As we speak, we are waiting for the groom to arrive. But he's been a long time coming, almost 2,000 years now. It's been so long, in fact, that most of us have dozed off. But sleeping or not, the bridesmaids of Philadelphia are prepared, and those of Laodicea are not. When the bridegroom comes at the rapture of his ecclesia, only the first group, those who have the Holy Spirit living within them, will be admitted to the party. The lessons are stunning. All of the bridesmaids knew the groom was coming. None of them knew when. All of them wanted to go to the party, and all of them were invited. None of them stayed wide awake watching for his coming. They all had the same opportunity. That is, they all had oil lamps with them. The only difference between them was that the wise had oil, the Holy Spirit abiding within them, and the foolish didn't. Now, here's the interesting part. All 5 of the foolish virgins went out and bought oil, and that meant they could still have a relationship with the groom after the wedding feast. But the only time they could get this oil was while the party was going on, and they couldn't come into the party halfway through because the doors were shut. They had to wait outside for the whole week. This is all a picture of the rapture and the tribulation that follows. But what does it mean to buy oil after the party started? The oil, as I said, is a metaphor for the Holy Spirit. Buying oil is thus a picture of receiving God's Spirit, of accepting His grace. For without it, there can be no relationship with the groom, Yahshua. They are one.